Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey, everybody. This is Craig Garber with Everyone Loves Guitar, and we have a warrior with us today. We're with Christine Ohlman. And not only is she a warrior because she's just a warrior, but she's a warrior because what she had to go through to get Skype set up to get on get on this call, which I really appreciate. Christine's been the lead singer of the Saturday Night Live band since 1991, which, let me do the math for you, that's 27 years, so that says a hell of a lot. She's also the leader of Christine Ohlman and Rebel Montez. The band's released 6 CDs and a DVD. She's also appeared on the 25th and 40th anniversary SNL telecast, and she was part of the house band for the 2012 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction in Cleveland. Signed by a label, she made her first record at the age of 16, and funny enough, guitarist G.E. Smith and bassist Paula Sola both played with Christine in an early band of hers, and all of them were then reunited on the SNL band. In 2017, she was inducted into the National Blues Hall of Fame of American Heritage International, and she also topped the AlternateRoute.com's readers poll as the top Americana vocalist. While recording and touring with Christine Ohlman and Rebel Montez are her main focus, she's got tons of all-star concert appearances to her credit, including guest performances with people like Elvis Costello, Ian Hunter, Bruce Springsteen, Brian Wilson, Steve Miller, Tom Morello, which is great, Sting, Lou Reed, Nona Hendryx, My Morning Jackets, Jim James, Ronnie Spector, Mac Rebennack, it's Dr. John, of course, Sonny Landreth, Taj Mahal, Lucinda Williams, and many others. She also tours and performs throughout the U.S., and she just wrapped up a number of dates down in Muscle Shoals. And although this is going to be the first time we've spoken, I can tell you now she's got a freaking tremendous work ethic. I mean, she's like, I really respect you for that. I mean that, like, I really respect that in general of people. You're just like bursting with energy, and that's like, not something that, people should take for granted. I certainly don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's known for her trademark mile-high platinum beehive hairdo, and she is a lady to be reckoned with. But when she opens her mouth to sing, the truth comes out. In her own words, I give it to an audience straight, which is the way I like it myself. I've loved rock and roll since I was a little girl, and I'll love it forever. It's my greatest kick and my greatest privilege to be able to get up on stage and rip it apart. That's rock and roll to me. I'm here to set your soul on fire, and I believe you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time. You're very nice and sweet.
Pleasure, Greg. Thank you for asking me. Yeah.
I want to start out with, I know you've been asked this question a million times, but I think it's really interesting to answer. The backstory to how you got the gig at SNL is really cool. And there's like a ton of great, success and work lessons in there. So if you could tell that again, I think that'd be wonderful.
Sure. Well, I had been in a band with G.E. Smith, who'd moved to Connecticut from the Poconos in Pennsylvania. And we'd been in a band together. It was a very eclectic band called the Scratch Band. We knew about 300 songs in our book. We knew just all kinds of music, all genres. And then he went on and became the musical director of SNL. And one day my phone rang, and it was him. And he wanted to know, I used to make, still do, make mixtapes and playlists. Now I put them in Dropbox. But, back in the day, I used to burn them, and he was the recipient. There was a very small list of people that would get these things that I knew would get it. It was all deep Southern soul music, which is what they call the genre. That is, comes out of Muscle Shoals, Memphis, in the 60s and early 70s. So he calls me up and he wants to know if I'm free on a certain date. He has a gig. And it's with the Saturday Night Live band, but they need a vocalist. So thank God I was free. And I said yes. So he didn't tell me what the gig was. Okay, come to New York. We're going to do a couple of days of rehearsal. And we're going to take some of those songs off the last CD you sent me and a bunch of other stuff. And we picked some really obscure songs, too. And we're going to write charts. And we're going to have 2 days of rehearsal at the Mayflower Hotel. So, okay, I go down there. I still don't know what the gig is. I meet the cats. Everyone is lovely. Meet the cats. Then I discover we're going to the Hamptons and we're playing 2 nights. And one of those nights is Lorne Michaels' wedding reception. Married a woman. They were already married, and they're going to have a big thing at his estate in the Hamptons, and we were going to be the band. So sure enough, they truck us out there. They have stage lights, everything. We get up, we do the songs, we play for a long time. have a lot of fun. I go back to the hotel in the Hamptons and think, well, that was great, but it's probably over now. And then the next week was the first week of the show for that season in September. Lorne walks across the studio to GE and motions him down to the lip of the stage and looks around and goes, "Where's the girl?" And the funny thing about this is that my nickname in the scratch band was The Girl.
Oh, that is funny.
If I call GE, they'll pick up the phone and go, "The Girl, what's going on?" You know, I swear to you. So anyway, GE goes, "What do you mean? Where's the girl? Where's the girl that was with you at the wedding?" "Well, I thought you just wanted me to get her for the wedding." And Lauren goes, "No, she was great. Call her up and tell her to come next week." So what does this illustrate? Well, networking, because I was sending around these CDs to people, or tapes even, like cassettes. It indicates I showed up. It indicates I aced the rehearsal. It indicates apparently I aced the gig. I mean, and some of these songs like "He Made a Woman Out of Me" by Betty LaVette, before she was famous again, quote unquote, are still in the book that we perform on Saturday Night Live. So
that's so cool. You know what else it shows? Like, you made that whole thing happen, because a lot of people say, "Man, there's no opportunity," and you know, you have to make opportunity. You
have to reach out, and you have to consistently network in the right way, which is not scream at people and not send them 45,000 emails and not send them stuff they didn't ask for. That's really important.
Yeah.
Don't send somebody an email that has 2 tracks embedded in it and go, "Maybe you'd like to hear some of my tracks." Well, maybe they wouldn't.
Yeah. But that's so cool, you know, because, you know, something may not come of that, but if you don't do it, definitely nothing will come of it.
See, what I tell people is you have to love the work for its own sake. So you can't love the work for the money. You can't love the work for the chicks. You can't love the work for any of that. You have to love the work for its own sake. And in that sense, you will find that things will come.
Yeah.
You know, and then you can decide whether you want to do them or not. But it really has to be that you're loving it because you just love it.
Yeah. And that's that kind of work ethic that I really respect that you have, because, you know, putting that extra effort, that's how shit gets done. You know?
I mean, I'm deeply embedded in New Orleans. I'm deeply embedded in New York, of course. I'm embedded in Nashville. I'm embedded in the Northeast, and I'm deeply, deeply embedded in Muscle Shoals. So these are all things that have happened because I've reached out to some cats that have appeared on your podcast, you know, and have reached out, and it has worked out that I have then been asked back, and I come back, and in every one of these scenes, I work with the top echelon of people, and that's not big-headed. That's just the truth. I'm not really sure how that happened, but it's just the way it is, you know, so.
No, I know how it happened, because you showed up, you did a good job, you didn't screw around, and the level of, first of all, your level of intensity is super high. That alone, not a lot of people have that from an energy standpoint. But you don't mess around. I know that when you go there, there's a certain level of expertise and professionalism that you're bringing. The bar is high, you know, and that's why that happened.
Super prepared all the time, you know.
Yeah.
We don't even have a 7-second delay on SNL. Lauren doesn't like it. He says it cuts the energy level.
Really?
So, yes. So that means you cannot screw up. I mean, what you're singing is what they're hearing, you know, so, or anything, what you're playing in terms of the band or the actors, whatever, you know, so.
Well, that is so cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm so happy that that all worked out for you.
Yes, it did. Mm-hmm.
Also, I normally never ask questions about names, but the name of your group is so like like Rebel Montez. Like, I looked it up and I was like, what, you know, tell me the background. The name of Christine's band is Rebel Montez, Montez.
First
And I'm
all,
like,
anybody that's ever had to name a band is laughing right now. Know how hard that is. It was me and my late husband sitting around. At first, I thought of something like Cortez the Killer, which is a Neil Young song, but I was a Cortez the Killer. So then I thought about Montez. And then somehow, then we were looking for a name that we honestly thought could maybe be an alter ego for me. And in the beginning, it really kind of was. In the beginning, it was just Rebel Montez. It wasn't Christine Ohlman and Rebel Montez. And I took out, I was in Book of the Month Club as Rebel Montez, you know, that kind of thing. But that got old really fast. But in the meantime, we kept it in. But after The Hard Way came out, we decided It had to be, or when The Hard Way was coming out, it had to be Christine Ohlman and Rebel Montez. And actually, the minute that happened, it sort of upped. It was interesting. It sort of upped the game of everything. The minute that happened, we realized it had to focus on me and the Beehive and the brand. So that's how come my name was also included in the name of the band.
So it's just like a lark, you guys screwing around, figuring something weird.
Came from. It was Montez, it was Cortez. I'm like, yeah. I said, yeah, but I don't want them to think it's a Latin band. I mean,
Right.
So somehow Rebel got in there. I don't know.
That's so funny. That's cool.
I know.
You said it was an alter ego. In what way? Like, what were you able to do?
The name instead of Christine Ohlman. Like, I could be Rebel Montez.
Did you have personality? Like, were you different? Like, because some people, when they're performing, they're not. Their alter ego is like.
Yeah, no, it's not like David Johansen turning into Buster Poindexter. No, it wasn't like that. I don't even know what I was thinking. Like I said, Craig, it didn't last very long. I was just Christine Ohlman, or of course my nickname everybody should know is the Beehive Queen. Now, if you look up Ohlman is Ohlman, but all you have to do is look up the Beehive Queen or Saturday Night Live Beehive Queen or Christine Beehive Queen.
Yeah,
and you're going to find me real easy on Google. So. That's my real alter ego is the Beehive Queen.
Well, the other thing is you've always had a band. I think that there's a lot of balls and a lot of responsibility involved in being a leader. And I was curious you're obviously super driven, super ambitious. Where did that come from? What makes you that way?
I think my parents, my siblings and I always talk about the fact that we're always the worker bees in the crowd. We're like diligently working, where not everybody else is. People are getting up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we're always working. We're always finishing things and starting things and finishing things. And finishing things is really important. A lot of people start things and they never finish,
Yeah. Well, where did that come from? Do you think? I mean, your folks were like that.
I just think we were brought up. I was always the kid in school. I mean, I was in the National Honor Society. I was a National Merit Scholar. I mean, I just think I always was like finished with my homework, finished with everything, and the radio never got turned off in my bedroom. But I was always finishing everything, And I just think that's my way of doing things, to make lists and finish them, So
that's funny. I'm like very similar to that. I've made lists. I mean, as long as I can remember,
I got lists on my lists, Craig. I could say because the way you set this whole thing up was very methodical and great, So
well, thanks. I appreciate that. It's easy when I'm dealing with people like you. Trust me. You've worked with some cool people. If you could talk about like how you made the connection on some of these folks and maybe a cool story, it would be really interesting. Start with Lou Reed.
Lou Reed came about just through mutual friends, and we did Hal Wilner at SNL. We did a tribute, a thing at the Rose Theater at Lincoln Center for Harold Arlen. It was a tribute to Harold Arlen. So it was a jazz show, and Lou Reed was on it with me. It was just a gorgeous, beautiful thing. Alan Toussaint was on the show, and then we did another thing with Hal. I think it was a tribute to Bill Withers, where Withers was there, and we were tributing him. And Lou was also on that show. Lou and Hal were very, very close. It was very hard for Hal when Lou passed. Yeah. So again, it's through networking and then knowing people, and then they think, well, she'd be good on the show. So, I do the enormous number of these compilation shows where I end up working with everybody,
God, how good is that? I mean, that's like, talk about networking by accident. I mean, that's like phenomenal. That's great.
The thing about like Mac Rebennack, that happened because of my association and commitment to the New Orleans Musicians Clinic and the New Orleans Musicians Assistance Foundation. Mac and I did 2 evenings of duets, just the two of us.
Wow.
At the houses of rich people who are very generous to the clinic. And
that's so cool.
They're musicians and they were wealthy, and they had us to their home with a bunch of their friends to raise a ton of money for the clinic. And the two of us just sang. I mean, it was amazing.
That's so cool.
Truly, yeah.
Well,
so
what was it like with, Lou Reed's kind of a mystical figure, and I don't mean like, I don't want any gossip stuff, but like, what was it like musically working with him?
Well, he sang and then I sang. We had separate parts of the show. Let me just say, the first place I met Lou Reed was on the Bob Dylan 30th anniversary concert at Madison Square Garden, which
Holy crap.
And there was Lou Reed doing this unbelievable Dylan song called Foot of Pride off of the first Biograph box, the very first of the, what do you call them? Outtake boxes.
Okay.
All right. So Foot of Pride, he does this unbelievable version and picks that song, or they picked it for him. And that's the first place I met him and hung out with him. So I knew him. Yeah.
Amazing.
He's very intense, very lovely, very shy, very intense. And you always would expect to hear something, different from him. I don't remember the Harold Arlen tune that he sang. I just don't remember. I wish I could. I did Stormy Weather.
Great song.
Yeah, Stormy Weather, and one other one, one other less well known one. I could tell you one story about that if you want.
Yeah. More.
So afterwards, Veuve Clicquot, as I recall, it was sponsored by a high end champagne company, and we had a very nice reception at Lincoln Center afterwards. And Alan Toussaint, the late great, is over in the corner of the room, and I see him over there, and I say, "Hey, it's Alan Toussaint." I never met him. All of a sudden, I see him making a beeline diagonally across the room, and I realize he's making a beeline toward me, and I just gotta, hey, he goes, please excuse me for not coming over sooner. I wanted to tell you that was the most wonderful version of Stormy Weather I ever heard.
Holy smokes!
I am just standing there in my mind going, come on, it wasn't better than Lena Horne. I'm just,
wow.
But I'm thinking, you know what? I said, Alan, that is so lovely. Thank you. In the meantime, my mind is going, God, that's not true. How lovely of you to come over, just how lovely of you to come over.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And that was Alan. Alan was a gentleman always, so.
Elvis Costello.
Oh, well, Elvis I've worked with a number of times. Now, this is to do with a charity called Little Kids Rock. I work with every year. We do a big gala in New York City, and we raise $1 million for this wonderful program that gives instruments to kids in the inner city, and lessons and band practice and things to kids in the inner city. Elvis is also a big supporter. So I've sung with him a number of times at that gala, but also we have a mutual friend and a wonderful producer named Stuart Lerman in New York City. And Stuart did all the music for Boardwalk Empire with Scorsese, and then went on to do all the music for Vinyl, which only lasted 1 year on HBO, sadly. And Elvis and I sang for Stuart a wonderful version called Point of No Return by this Southern songwriter that nobody knows anything about. But he also wrote 13 Inches High, which Nick Lowe
Oh, cool. Yeah.
recorded. And so we went in and did that. And that was for Stuart. So there you have Stuart has nothing to do with Little Kids Rock.
Yeah.
With Elvis. And there's me in between the two things. I've done a lot of things for Stuart over the years. And Stuart goes, because Elvis is connected to Nick Lowe, and Nick Lowe was a big devotee of this writer. So there you go. So now the next thing you know, Nick Lowe's not involved, but Elvis is, and we're doing this song. And I'm like, God, I know that song. Why do I know that song? Because I collect records and I collect vinyl, and I've known, I've known about him forever. So, it really is just an amazing thing.
It is. And the music world is really small once you
it's incredibly small. And that's one thing that everybody should know. If you're thinking of kids, it's incredibly small. So just let me say this too. Don't screw up, because if you screw up, it'll get back. It'll come back. I mean,
I would imagine
the flip side of it, it'll come back. And, it'll come back. Yeah. So that's an example of how becoming the nexus of things kind of gets you work, because somebody over here and somebody over here, and somehow they collide.
Yeah, that's great.
And next thing you know, you have work. So yeah.
Is he a New York guy, Elvis Costello? I mean, I know he's from England. Does he live in the city?
Around New York. I think he might have a place there. Yeah, he might have a place there. No, he's British. I mean, he's British, you know.
Steve Miller?
Yeah, might have a place there, yes. And that Jim Ford is that writer's name. I couldn't think of it at the moment. Jim Ford, yeah. But nobody knows who he is. He was great.
Oh, the Southern guy you were talking about.
Southern guy, and he's deceased now, but he was great. And Nick Lowe recorded a bunch of his songs and kind of adapted some of his mannerisms, singing it even. So they were very close. And then, of course, Costello was close to Lowe, so, that's the way it is.
Steve Miller.
Okay, so Steve Miller again, Little Kids Rock. He shows up. Okay, here's a Steve Miller story. Steve Miller, speaking of driven, is easily one of the top 5 driven people I know. All right, so he walks into rehearsal, and we're all set with his songs. He walks into the rehearsal at the Gibson factory, which used to be the record plant in New York City, and with a chip on his shoulder. And really, I think, because he'd obviously been put with bands before that weren't his band, and he hadn't had a good experience. So it's Liberty DeVito on drums. It's Ricky Byrd on guitar.
Wow.
Will Lee is the MD. We're all there. We're all ready to play and sing with him. And he starts in on specific things he wants on the Joker. He wants this. He doesn't want any vibrato on the singing. He wants this on the guitar. Blah, 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 blah. And we're just sitting there because we totally know the song,
And those are all top cat professionals, including yourself. Yeah,
we played a song. We finished the song. He looks around the room and he goes, "Well, if I knew you were all such motherfuckers, I wouldn't have come in here with the attitude I came in with."
That's awesome.
Apologized, and that was like a great thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Thinking, we don't want to work with this cat. The hell, I mean, he's going to come off like this, But then he was a dream to work with after that. So I mean, it's obvious that he was just
tainted,
taking his bets. He wanted to make sure, that we knew what he wanted.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that has just, gone on and now actually lives in New York. He gave up the ranch. Yeah, he gave up the ranch. He lives in New York now. So yeah. Wow. Anyway, Steve Miller, had a wonderful time with him. Yeah.
Good that he owned that, and apologized. That was like the right thing to do.
Yes. Yeah. We all thought it was great, and it diffused it. And we were like, okay, great. Let's just get on to the next thing, So it was fun. It was fun with him.
Tom Morello.
Tommy Morello came about because Springsteen brought him around. He got, again, Little Kids Rock. He got brought around several times to the Little Kids Rock shows by Springsteen. Stephen Van Zandt had been involved with that charity and with those shows. And so he at one time, and maybe still, has a very close relationship to Springsteen, I mean. So Springsteen would bring him, they would do things together. And he was very gracious, again, with the charity. Everyone volunteers their time, for these shows. And like I said, we raise just tons of money. And it's partially how the charity keeps going.
That's great. What a unique. I mean, that guy, plays 3 notes. It's Tom Morello. There's no mystery there.
Yeah. It was really different. And he was wonderful. He was wonderful to work with.
Are you working on anything now that you're excited about?
Well, I'm trying to get a new record together. It's been a long time since I put out The Deep End, which was a success and kind of pushed me into a different echelon of touring and everything. So we have the songs and we're just getting ready to go back in the studio. This will be my 5th studio album and it's called The Grown Up Thing. So yeah, we're working on we're doing fundraising for that. We're going to be starting fundraising. Maybe you could help me promote that. It's not in place yet.
Yeah.
And then The Grown Up Thing. And there'll be some interesting special guests. The Subdudes are going to completely record one track for me and sing on it as well. G.E. Smith will be on it. Paul Thorne will be on it, and a bunch of other people. So we're excited about that. It's a lot of work, but I'm into it. And the problem is really just finding the time.
Sure. That's a cute title.
The Grown Up Thing.
Yeah.
It's a song about a woman that finds out that It's Alabama based. Her supposed fiance is also engaged to another woman 3 towns over.
Holy shit!
Towns over. I don't know what he thought he was going to do, but yeah.
So you
thought he was going to make it work. Yeah.
Wow. I hear stuff like that. Like I can't manage my one life. Like it's almost like a skill set because I'm like overwhelmed with the shit
like
I have.
15 miles away or something. I don't know what the cat thought. I just don't know but anyway, the grown up thing.
I don't know how people do that. So I don't know if you could answer this question. You've been involved in so many cool projects, and I was curious if you had to choose a top 3 experiences.
Oh,
either music, because of the relationships, the work you did, the experience. What would?
Well, in retrospect, that is a hard question because one of those people that I'm blessed to say could probably pick, I don't know, 10 or 15. Certainly that Bob Dylan show, because it was the first ever of those huge. Now we're used to it, but it was the first ever of those huge panoramic shows, and because there were so many people on it, from Johnny Cash right down the line, so there would be that. Being asked to sing alone with Mac Rebennack, certainly because he embodies so much of the ethos that is New Orleans, and becoming friends with him, he's just so deep, There have been so many other all-star things I've done, but I would have to say that my first experiences in Muscle Shoals were going down on my own dime to play in a sports bar in the middle of a cotton field with a band called The Decoys, which is David Hood's band, the Swamper bassist.
Swamper, yeah.
Mike Dillon and Kelvin Holly.
Wow, there's some...
At that night, and then followed shortly thereafter by a visit where I sang on the deck of a restaurant with Bonnie Bramlett. It was my first meeting with Bonnie Bramlett, who's now one of my closest friends. And we sang a song called Cover Me, written by the great Eddie Hinton. Speaking of great guitar players who died too young, Eddie Hinton. And then sitting watching us was Donnie Fritz, and I'd never met Donnie Fritz. So I would have to say that those two things together form my first experiences playing with people in Muscle Shoals, but I had also gone down on my own dime to meet Paul Thorne. And that was actually how I ended up meeting so many of them, was, again, deciding I was going to do this, going down on my own dime, and to hang out at one gig with him overnight. And met Spooner Oldham that night, met so many people that night. So anyway, yeah. So that's a long answer, but I mean,
yeah.
Two of those things are fairly high profile. One of them is not, but pivotal in my life. So I can't.
But how cool is that? There you go. Another story of, let me take a chance. Let me do something. Maybe something will come out of it. Maybe not, but I'm going to go have fun that night and play music.
For all I knew, they could have gone, yeah, we don't really like the way she sings. I don't know. Anything could have happened.
Yeah.
But of course they knew I was coming. I didn't just show up. I asked if I could come. I wasn't just showing up. But
that's great.
Yeah.
But what you just said, anything could have happened. But doesn't that with like you could leave the house, anything could happen.
That's right. Anything could happen. Exactly.
Yeah. And so if you're looking at the glass half full, then more often than not, you'll have half full things happen. If you're looking at the glass half empty, then
yeah,
probably going to happen like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're originally from New York? Like, where'd you grow up?
Born in the Bronx. Yeah.
That's why we have this thing here, I think.
Yeah.
What was your childhood like growing up?
Well, we moved to Connecticut, but I was near New Haven, Connecticut, but I was always at my grandparents' house. We were there like every other weekend. I was there for weeks in the summer. They lived over near Parkchester in the Bronx.
Oh, and, I know exactly. I used to work in the bank there in the Circle.
Tremont Avenue. So we talk about, Ricky Bird and I talk about this all the time. He's also from the Bronx. Liberty DeVito is from Brooklyn. They're my brothers from another mother in our band, the Clean Getaway All-Stars. So so it was wonderful growing up. I loved my little town in Connecticut, but I was always really, really connected to New York. My mother died young. And young, I mean, I was 30 when she died, but I mean, she was young. And I was always sorry that she didn't know about this. She didn't live to see me get the gig on Saturday Night Live, because she would have been so happy, and to have that New York connection established again, my brother and I started a first band. I was 16, he was 15, in a basement in Connecticut, and got signed to Mainstream Records at along the same time that the Amboy Dukes were there, and Ultimate Spinach. So Jeff Baxter and Ted Nugent. We were the little baby band at Mainstream, and Janis Joplin had just left Mainstream to go to Columbia.
So it was a major label, or
yeah, it was. Yeah. Bob Shad was an amazing guy. He had started a jazz label and had recorded field recordings of Ray Charles Robinson when he was still Ray Charles Robinson in Florida, field recordings, and then started Mainstream as a record for, quote unquote, the kids. We're going to label for the kids. It was very psychedelic, Mainstream, and so that came out of the basement in Connecticut, and one of those records was just reissued a couple years ago on Ace in the UK.
Which record?
They did a Mainstream compilation.
That's so cool.
I Journeyed to the Center of the Mind. Yeah,
by the Amboy Dukes.
The Amboy Dukes.
Yeah, that's so funny. What kind of work did your folks do? Were they involved in music?
Prudential insurance, and my mother was a bookkeeper.
Oh, so they weren't they were really supportive of your music, though.
My father could play piano by ear. My mother had studied dance in New York City. My mother and her sister went to St. Patrick's Cathedral High School on scholarship.
Wow.
Because my father drove a laundry truck, and my grandparents were the salt of the earth, and my father's parents too, but they were in Connecticut. We did more love the New York grandparents, I will say, but my grandmother was just great. She took us around everywhere, and so my parents were not musicians.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Coming up, back when you first started, what were some of and maybe throughout even, what were some of the bigger obstacles that you've had to deal with and sort of overcome and just kick down being a woman?
Girl. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me
any other bunch of friends, but really guys. I have close female friends, but by far more of my friends are guys. Because in the beginning, I think it was seen as my brother's band and I was the chick singer. It took a while. When I finally formed my own band, after the Scratch Band broke up, that was when I really started writing. And that was a big hurdle for me. I did not think I could. I ended up to be, I think, a pretty good songwriter, or maybe better than pretty good. But I mean, that was something that I had not planned on doing. But it was obvious that I was going to have to start my own band. And then once I did that, it was like, well, the Scratch Band had original song, which I didn't write. You don't expect to be doing cover tune. That just wasn't in the cards, So you're not going to get out there and play the radio hits of the day. That wasn't the kind of band we ever were, and that wasn't the kind of band that Christine Ohlman and Rebel Montez was going to be. And first I had a band called the Soul Rockers, and we did actually do a bunch of soul covers, but also a few originals. And then I said, no, I got to write. I've got to write, So I started to, and it was tortuous at first. Taught myself
writing.
Yeah, tortuous. Taught myself guitar. I didn't really know that many chords. It was that kind of thing. And but I was a real good lyric writer. So I thought anyway. So that was a whole nother process. Was that I had to become a songwriter and become a rhythm guitar player, not a lead player, but a rhythm guitar player. We were the baby band in Connecticut that used to open for a band called the Wild Weeds. The guitar player of the Wild Weeds was Big Al Anderson.
Oh.
So if I'm going to talk about a great guitar player, and in my opinion, just one of the greatest, and we just did a bunch of gigs with him up in Connecticut. He doesn't live here anymore, but he comes here twice a year and plays. And Al was the lead guitar player of the Wild Weeds. So, now cool. There's another thing where we never really lost touch, and there he is, NRBQ, and then now his own solo stuff.
You said being a woman was clearly the biggest obstacle. Without naming names or anything, can you give a couple of specifics where you had a hard time? And
nobody. I should qualify that. Nobody mistreat. I was because first of all, I was under the umbrella of this band with my brother, and then my brother was actually in the beginning in the Scratch Band. And by that time, we were all so close when he left the scratch band and Mickey Curry became the drummer. I still was really cocooned by all of these guys and loved them and they loved me. I've never been, I can't really think of a time when, but I also think it was because I developed this sort of can-do attitude where I was known for showing up and throwing down. So that helped me, I think, to not ever be caught in that web of, and also because I started schooling myself. Once I realized I was going to have to start writing, I started really schooling myself on what key were the songs in. Not to be ever thought of as the ditzy singer that doesn't even know what key she's singing in. I did know what key I was singing in, and I knew some of the changes, and I knew how to talk about the changes. I saw that had to happen. And also, my late husband owned a studio. He owned the record label, and so that really helped too. So I've never really been I have to say this honestly, I've never really been out there floundering, but I've had students that were, and it can be awful, especially when you get taken advantage of by somebody you're personally involved with. I mean, that is, I still think
that's awful.
Worst thing for women in this business is that, and it still continues to happen. So yeah, my boyfriend was my producer, and then he left, and then he took all the recordings with him or some crap like that. I mean, and I'm like, I don't think he would have done that if you were a guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
So, well, in the first place, you wouldn't have been in it. So, but I would have to say, it was not an insurmountable thing for me, but it was a thing. But I did, I think, get over it. I got over it, and I am over it. Now. I mean, I'm over it, way over it now. I mean, now it's not even. I don't even think about it.
But you also had it seemed to have a pretty high level of awareness about stuff like this. Like, I don't think someone would have had to work real hard to sort of pull the wool over your eyes. I don't think. Oh yeah.
And my husband. The other thing I will say is, my husband died 13 years ago, and my husband died. I had to school myself in everything from publishing, starting my own publishing company. I had to do so much at that time. It was a crazy time because I said, if you're going to keep on in this business, he handled so much from it. I would have to learn everything. And I did, with the help of 5 or 6, all men who were friends of ours, who were extremely, extremely helpful. I made a short list. Who am I going to call on? And they all came through. They educated me. They helped me, get a wonderful rep at BMI who helped me start my own company. He was still my rep. I moved very quickly to consolidate my life, my professional life. And I had to, so that was something that I look back on and go, I don't even know how I did it, but I did do it. I gained control of my publishing. I mean, it was really something, to have to do. Yeah,
but I bet you said the same thing before, like you had to school yourself on how to writing songs, so that's just like you. That's what you do. Okay, let me deal with this shit. And
well, they're going to hunker. Either that or you're going to roll up into a ball.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but I said to myself, I own these. I got to own these masters. I got to own this public. And I did. And in the end, I do.
Good for you. I'm so happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like a great example of just keeping your head down and just, do the next right thing. And, it's not a perfect world for anybody,
no.
but at least you're getting stuff done. And
exactly. There's a great quote by Robert De Niro. Exactly. He says, don't worry about what other people think. Just put your head down and do the work. That's great coming from him. Such a genius.
That being said, if you had to give advice to your younger self, what advice would you have liked to have received?
To learn more in the beginning and not rely on other people. So I relied on my husband. I relied on, to some extent, my brother, who still is one of my best friends. I relied on other people. And I think in that respect, I was a little lazy professionally. I had this great voice, and it's only gotten deeper as I've gotten older. I sing better, I think, all the time because I don't know why. I opened my heart more, I think. And so I think I would have schooled myself better. I don't know exactly how I would have done that, but I think looking, like you said, hindsight's always 20/20.
Sure.
I think I would have, yeah.
I have a question from Cliff, actually. So Cliff Goodwin introduced us. Cliff was Joe. I interviewed Cliff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Cliff Goodwin. I don't know. You could look it up online, but he was Joe Cocker's guitarist and musical director, and he was kind enough to introduce Christine and I. And I asked Cliff. I said, "Do you have any questions?" He goes, "Oh yeah." He goes, "Ask Christine, when did you realize you could write a good song?"
Yeah. Because Cliff Goodwin is in Rebel Montez, and I'm really the only original project that he's in, I think. And he's very, very song-oriented and very taken.
Very song-oriented.
Helping me embellish and work on songs live and in the studio. So that's very, very nice that he asked you to ask that question. The answer is, I wish I knew. I think what happened was I evolved out of copying other people. And then I all of a sudden realized that it happened because I learned how to play guitar better. So I've never been good at collaborating and co-writing. So I realized that I could take this sensibility I had with the lyrics. And once I learned a couple of different chords, I think that's kind of where it tipped over. The first really great song that I wrote, I think, was a song called "The Shot of You," which is on the Hard Way CD. And it came out of a relationship, and it came out of thinking about relationships. And then there was this interesting sort of pulsing chord progression. It's very much of its time, but it's one of our most popular songs live.
What's that called? I'm sorry.
"A Shot of You."
Because I want to make sure I go listen. A Shot of You.
The Hard Way. And G.E. Smith is playing guitar on it, as well as the late Eric Fletcher, who died a year after my husband did, and that's when Cliff came into the band. So, but then I write slowly, but I'm always really very happy to have written, and I'm always really happy later on with the lyrics. I'm always going, wow, these are some great lyrics. I don't even know, the other thing we make a joke about is I write a lot of titles and little snippets of songs on napkins. I'm always making like napkins and little pieces of paper. John Hyatt does this too. We have these boxes full of little pieces of paper, and then you have to now write a song around the pieces of paper. One the songs on the new record. This song called "You Took a Razor to My Tender Little Heart," and that was nothing. On a napkin.
You know who does that? I interviewed. Do you know who Jim Peterick is?
Oh yes, I work with Jim Peterick. Yes, yeah.
Awesome guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
He has like a giant book of titles.
Snippets of lyrics.
Yeah.
And you keep them in a big box or a big, and it's when you take it out and you start sorting through them. Yeah, Peterick, I do something called The Sessions, thesessions.org. It's an interactive panel. We go all around the world. We talk to college kids. Liberty DeVito got me involved in it. Liberty knows Peterick really well. So Peterick showed up at an event in Nashville, gets me up to sing "Eye of the Tiger" with him. Jimmy Peterick is a trip.
He is a trip. Yeah, he was great. I really had a good time talking with him. Super cool, very sweet.
His hair could be any color on any given day, and
it was purple.
Match his guitar, So yeah, he's great.
Oh wow! Well, thanks for answering that. And Cliff was really Cliff. I've spoken to like 300 people, but Cliff said, and there's a couple of people that have said one or two things that really stuck out. And Cliff said one, and I interviewed him. He said, Craig, a song never won a Grammy because of the snare drum. You got to serve the melody and the voice. Yeah. So he's very song oriented and like you just said. It reminded me when he said that, and I thought about
who produces my records now and has played on every record is Andy York. Andy York is John Mellencamp's guitar player. Andy York is just one of the most prolific chord meisters that I've ever worked with in a beautiful way, And also Mellencamp, they use a lot. It's him and Mike Wanchek, and then Mellencamp on acoustic, but they use a lot of capoing between the three of them. Okay. And that's produces, as you know, a very exotic and rich sound when they do that. So, yeah.
Desert Island. What's the first record you ever purchased?
Oh,
do you remember?
God. The one that I remember and that I tell people about is I made my father go buy me a copy of Lonely Teardrops by Jackie Wilson. And that's the first one I remember putting down on the turntable. I adored that song, and I adored Jackie Wilson. And my father was good enough to go out. I mean, I in no way, shape, or form could have gone out and bought it, but he found it for me. Ever since I've been so tiny, all I ever wanted to do was listen to rhythm and listen to black music. I mean that, and that's evolved over the years. But I mean, one of the guys in the scratch band had a huge Delta blues collection, and then I became friends with Cub Coda, the late great.
Oh yeah.
Very close friends with Cub, recorded with my husband, came to Connecticut. And Cub, of course, knew everything about everybody, the Excello label. So I just amassed all these, like a chameleon, I amassed all these influences, early gospel stuff. I mean, Dave Marsh has dubbed what I do contemporary rock R&B. He says I'm like Johnny Lyons. I'm like Southside Johnny in that respect, or Springsteen, in that we take from every part of American music. Not much interested in the Brits myself. I mean, even though Ian Hunter is such a great friend, but Ian's records now that I appear on, I like Mott the Hoople.
Yeah.
But if someone would say, was Pete Townsend a big? Not really. Roebuck Staples was a big influence, not more so than Pete Townsend. Andrew Lou Golden was one of my best friends. He was friends with my husband, was a business partner of my husband's.
The Stones producer. The Stones
producer, yeah. Lives in Colombia now. So Andrew is a really close friend. We were just emailing the other day. And I loved the Beatles, but I liked the Stones more because they were drawing from these obscure American records. Yeah. Andrew would come over the house and all he'd want to do is look at the Bobby Bland records I had.
It's funny.
That was all he wanted. Yeah.
I've never been I like the Beatles, but I've never been they never like emotionally did anything for me. I like this. It was nice. Some of the music I really enjoyed, the White Album,
Sure.
But I never, to me, I'd much rather listen to the Stones. They're a little more grittier. They're going to get in they're going to make me feel something a little more than.
And you're sort of overwhelmed by the beauty of the Beatles' technical, I think, expertise and their execution.
Yeah.
But to grab at your heart, for me, I would agree it would be the Stones.
Yeah. I want to hear blues. That's what I want to hear.
Sure. Yeah. Desert
Island Discs, and let me make it easy. In no particular order, just for today. You could have 3 new ones tomorrow. So what would be your knee-jerk reaction?
There is a list on my website that has a bunch of stuff. But all right, the Staple Singers on VJ. The Staple Singers on VJ I would take with me anywhere. They're early gospel things I would have to have, with me.
Do you know Rick Holmstrom?
I don't.
Rick, he's been playing with Mavis forever, and he says it's like one of the greatest gigs he's ever had in his life. He said,
I just went out with her. So I know. I mean, I don't know his name.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was hanging out with all of them and her. But Roebuck, that with her brother and sisters and her father, the Staple Singers. I don't know. You could look on that thing on my website. It's on the homepage, and it says up in the corner, the right hand corner. It says Christine's Desert Island picks. I don't know. In there, I know is the Everly Brothers, Devoted to You. It wouldn't be a whole lot of new stuff. I mean, I'm really not all that interested in new stuff. Although, because I was just a friend of mine made me a driving CD for. Alabama. She made it in 2012, but I take it with me every year. I was listening to Jason Isbell and the 440 unit and his songs like Groan and Alabama Pines, those kind of songs just thrill me. And while I'm in Muscle Shoals now, I work with John Paul White from the Civil Wars. John debuted a bunch of new songs the other night that were just out of this world. I mean, he's had to start doing his own thing, obviously. And he debuted some songs that were just out of this world. They owed a little bit to Jason Isbell, I thought, in their structure, but John has this amazing high voice that he can utilize. So yeah, Isbell was somebody that I was just recently listening to, his older stuff.
Yeah, I interviewed his guitar player. They're a tight band.
Post Drive-By Truckers. Yeah, Post Drive-By Truckers, his solo stuff.
Most important thing you've learned about yourself over this journey. And now this is funny. When I asked you to talk about yourself, now you're almost getting shy. This is quite funny.
Well, the most important thing I've learned about myself is that right now is that I need to finish this record. It's just taking me so long to do it. You know, Andy York and I were just talking about it. Andy and Ian Hunter and I were watching the World Cup. I went down to Connecticut, the part of Connecticut they live in, and we were watching the World Cup and we were talking about it. But also, I guess, is that I continually need to focus and renew my myself. At this point, you know, I will be honest with you and say that I think I live in a very deep emotional place all the time. So I'm always drawing from things. I'm always reaching out to people in different ways, and it's all about emotion for me, and affirmation of being good to other people musically and personally. So that's really a big part of my life right now is how do I balance this emotion with production, with continued outreach to other artists, and affirmation of other artists. I think everybody these days, needs emotional ballasting in this climate that we're in this country without politics. It's just needed. And in the artistic community in particular, because I think we're all trying to figure out how to process it. There hasn't been a great protest song come out of it yet, I don't think, that has captured everyone. Rap artists, I think, are actually the ones that are doing the most, you know, but with Black Lives Matter and things like that. So it really, I guess I'm feeling it in my gut that people need music now more than ever. And how am I going to continue to contribute to that and uplift people, you know? I will go in 2 weeks to be with the Rock and Roll Camp for Girls up the Institute for the Musical Arts. I'll be with the preteen program of the Rock and Roll Camp for Girls. And these girls that are just starting out, and what can I give them in terms of self-motivation, in terms of self-esteem? Artistically, what can I give them? You know, I'll just be with them for a day, but how can I help them, you know?
That was really cool.
Yeah.
What you just said, I live in a deep emotional place all the time.
Yeah.
That's well, I think that takes a lot of courage to live in that place.
Yeah. I mean, I never had children. So it's really, music, you know, really has pretty much been my life. And I really think that there's no point in doing it any other way. That's one of the reasons I like hanging around down south, because they are just connected that way. And they don't sweat feeling bad. They just know they're going to feel bad, and that's it. And they'll do something with it musically. It's one of the reasons why I love Jason Isbell so much, is that he articulates that, I think. I mean, Lucinda Williams does too, but I connect more with Isbell. He just connects with that. I ain't been living like I should. I got to do better, you know, that kind of thing. And then they just write a song about it, you know. So, but up here in the Northeast, I find that I do have to kind of keep my center. You know, when I go to a gig, I'm very zen before I go on stage. I'd be like, you know, centered and just kind of know that I am going to give everything when I get on stage. So, and that's just the way it is. And if you don't like it, you know, fuck it, because that's what I do. So therefore, I need to marshal myself before I do that. You know, I've never known any other way of performing.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything you do like that. You don't do this. In my limited exposure, you're like on 10 and you're going to give it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, I love people like that. I just,
Yeah.
I like, knowing what's going on, don't piss on my back and tell me it's raining,
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, exactly. So, and I'm going to take everything I know and everything that I learn, and I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
Use it.
Something or someone you miss from your childhood.
I miss from my childhood?
Yeah, something or someone you miss.
I didn't really have any big losses of people in my childhood. It was more when I was in my 20s and 30s that I lost people. Wow, I can't. I had a pretty great growing up. I don't think there's anything I miss from my childhood. That's a good question, though. Yeah.
Thank you. Most important thing your dad taught you.
Ah, my dad. My dad, I think, is more the worker bee thing than anybody. My dad was very product oriented, and he was an extremely good guy. So I think, he taught us to be honest. He taught us not to be sleazy ever, which in this business is something you encounter so very much of if you're not careful, or even if you are careful.
Yeah.
The sleaze, and also he was just always a worker. So I think he taught us that by example.
How about mom? Most important thing your mom taught you?
My mother was a great spirit. She was a very free spirit, who drank herself to death in the end. She was only 53. Oh
my God.
Also because I think that it was this emotional, I get some of that. Do not have that problem. None of my siblings do. And we talk about it all the time. None of us are substance abusers, but God knows we could have been, they say it's hereditary. My mother, I think, drank to, help her get through the day. It was that kind of thing. So, and then later on it became a real serious problem. So I think that, but what she taught me was this wonderful love of life and, joie de vivre. And she was always very open, so I think that's what she taught me.
That's great. Yeah. It's interesting. I have a lot of people I've met who've gotten sober and stuff. And one of the guys I know, he made a comment. It's like the best I ever heard. He said, genetics loads the gun and environment pulls the trigger.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that was good. And you never know why someone is and why someone isn't. And, it is what it is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Apparently. And it can rear its ugly head and you can be sober 22 years and you lose it one night. That's a heartbreak, heartbreak.
Any hobbies or interests outside of music?
Gardening. I love
Really?
Gardening. I probably would have been a gardener if I didn't go to music. It's really healing for me to be out with my hands in the dirt. And up here in the Northeast, I came home and lots of stuff had popped. I was away 13 days. So lots of stuff had popped, which was really great.
Yeah.
And last night I was out putting stuff in pots, I'm also a voracious reader, so I'm always reading. And
you need to get me a photo of you gardening with your beehive. But I, a voracious reader, and also, I'm someone who will take little snippets from books, and put them in my lyric, thing just to kind of tweak your mind, Yeah, idea prompts.
Something, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a song called Edge of the World, which is also on the hard way. Down the river, past Little Egypt, that was taken. There was a song that was not exactly those words, but that lyric part of it was taken from a book. And then I changed the line and extrapolated the line. And so that really helped me with that song. It got me going on that song,
Yeah, I think it's important to have idea prompts. How do you?
Yeah,
you can't start with a blank sheet of paper. It doesn't really work like that,
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't for me anyway. It doesn't for me anyway.
What are you proudest of, musically and personally?
No.
And every time I ask you about you, you're just like,
I don't know.
This is funny.
Well, personally, I guess I'm proudest that I'm just able to keep on and to keep, as I say, connecting with people. Connecting with people is really my thing. Whether it's artistic or it's personally or to reach out to somebody. So, what was the other part of the question? What part?
What are you proudest of musically and personally? So, personally, you said about their ability to connect.
There are certain songs that I'm proudest of musically. And Edge of the World would be one of those, certainly. Love Make You Do Stupid Things, which is on the deep end. That's a song that gets played everywhere. I'm just pretty proud of that. I'm proud of my lyrics, I would say, overall. I'm also proud that my voice, I think, consistently gets better in the sense that I am able to open myself more, I think, and that has made my voice I don't know, more expressive maybe. I don't know what the word is. When somebody like Donnie Fritz...
More soulful.
Yeah, soulful. When somebody like Donnie Fritz sits you down in Muscle Shoals this last week and says to me, I think you're singing better than ever. And Donnie Fritz, to me, is one of the most soulful singers. I just want to cry, When Travis Womack says, I treasure every moment on stage that I sing with you. I mean... monster guitar player, monster blue-eyed soul singer. He put that on Facebook last night, and I almost burst into tears.
Wow, that's deep shit.
I don't think I'm worthy of any of that, But then I think about Alan Toussaint running across the room.
That's right,
and across the room. I was like, "Well, thank you." I don't know if that's really true, but on the other hand, I don't know why you would have run across here to tell me. You didn't have to even come over. You know what I mean? So
of course it's true. People don't do things, it's not statistically possible that all those things are like bullshit, right?
Well, the Lord does not love a big head. You know what I mean? The Lord does not love a proud countenance. And I'm not a big Christian or anything like that, but I love those kind of expressions, The Lord does not love a proud countenance, meaning don't be a big head,
Hey, I'm going to ask you one last question. I can't thank you enough. You're really sweet to talk with, and I appreciate it.
Oh, well, yeah.
What's been the biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, Christine? And how much of this change has been deliberate and intentional, and how much is just a, process
it's been
of aging?
the last 13 years. Since my husband died. So one of the things that and of course, that's a cataclysmic event. He had cancer. His death was everything was cataclysmic. So in those years, I have packed more than I had probably in the previous 20, and that's the truth. I have traveled. I started out traveling to the Delta by myself. I mean, I did all this business with the publishing company, the Masters. I made a new record. I made 2 new records, actually. I suffered the loss in his sleep of a guitar player, and then Cliff, who I'd been working with in a cover band, came on with me and became instrumental in the songs on the deep end and the songs that'll be on the grown-up thing. This all happened. It seemed like it just telescoped. All these all-star things I'm doing started right after my husband died. I realized what I had to do was I had to reach out. And if I didn't reach out, I wouldn't be able to move forward at all. Yeah. But reaching out, I could never have predicted the level of explosion that would happen, where I would become embedded in all these different scenes, all within maybe the first 5 years after his death. And then just to go on from there, has been so amazing to me. And so sustaining. Sustaining would be the word I would use. Well,
I'm terribly sorry for your loss, and I'm so happy for you that.
I mean, there's a lot of people in that club. I just had to talk to Linda Hall, who's Rick Hall's widow in Muscle Shoals, the Fame Studios, and she said, "I know you're in the club," and I said, "Yes, I am in the club." There's so many. I've tried to pay it forward with widows and widowers. Do you know Larry Saltzman on the scene in New York City? Larry Saltzman, great guitar player. He just lost his wife in New York. And Pepe Castro from the Blues Magoos, he lost his wife a couple years ago. They're all guitar players. It just so happens. But then there's a lot of widows involved, around, and
Sure.
I try to pay forward that,
Well, I'm really glad you reached out, and I'm really happy that it all.
Oh, yeah.
That it all worked. That you got a happy ending here.
Yeah.
But I don't think you'd have it any other way for some reason.
Yeah, probably not.
Hey, listen, let me tell people where they could find you. And thank you so much again. You're a doll, and I'd love to have you back anytime you want.
Yeah, can I just say one more little thing? Because I know this is a guitar podcast.
Yeah, totally.
I owe so much to my late friend, Cesar Diaz. Cesar, did you know him? He's, he was an amp designer, Dr. C, and worked with Dylan and Stevie Ray Vaughan. So I play a Gibson, a 1966 J45.
Nice.
I own a bunch of pre-CBS amps. I own a pre-CBS a 64 Vibroverb, a 64 Super Reverb.
Wow. A
60 Super with its companion chocolate brown reverb head. I own a 65 Princeton. So anyway, I own a lot of stuff like that.
Where'd you get all these amps?
I've had them. I had them when I started playing guitar. The Vibroverb I inherited from the Scratch Band, and GE tries to get it from me repeatedly. No, you're not getting it. But it's funny. The Vibroverb and the Super Reverb are from the same month in 1964.
That's weird.
The code inside on the label, I have a Martin. I have a 1952 L2 Gibson. So I have, anyway, guys, I have some nice guitars, and I'm lucky in that regard, but mostly I'm a singer. So that's all I have to say about the guitar aspect of it.
Thanks, Christine. Hey, let me tell people where they can find you, and let's talk about just a couple of things I know are important to you. First of all, it's Christine Ohlman, and it's Christine. You know how to spell Christine, I hope. Ohlman, Ohlman, and you should go to her website at christineohlman.net. christineohlman.net, and she's got all of her gigs. She's constantly gigging around, and if you're in the Northeast or if you're in Muscle Shoals or wherever she's going to be, go out and or God knows where.
Be in Nashville during the AMA on September 16th doing a gospel show down there. So
awesome.
Yeah.
But go out and support Christine. Go say hello to her. Tell her you heard her interview and that how cool she is. And all her records are on there, and hopefully when her new album, The Grown Up Thing, comes, she'll come on here and we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Also, she gives voice lessons. I asked her, and I was so happy that she does that. So if you are a guitarist and you could use a little help, or you feel awkward, or if you've got performance issues, that sounds weird. Yeah. If you've got vocal performance issues, and you need some help from a very seasoned pro who's been out there in the trenches, she's someone that you want to be in the foxhole with. So go to her website again. I'm serious, man. I want to be in the foxhole with you. She's someone that you definitely want to get some help from. Christine Ohlman, again, ohlman.net, and go to her contact form, reach out to her and talk to her about getting some vocal lessons. She also has a couple of charities that are near and dear to her heart. One of them is, and maybe you could talk about this, the New Orleans Musicians Clinic. Mm-hmm. Want to talk about that?
New Orleans Musicians Clinic .org, New Orleans Musicians Assistance Foundation. They serve everybody down there, from Dr. John to the members of the Preservation Hall Jazz Band, the members of the Radiators. Anybody really down there. So important, in that scene. Not a lot of money down there for the cats. They really need health care, and I'm very proud to be associated with them. They have a new initiative called You Got This, which is about suicide and prevention and mental health, which is a big issue.
Oh, hell yeah. God, yeah. And, go ahead. Sorry.
Should I go on? I have two others that I would talk about.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, what about June?
Rock, nationwide for giving musical instruments, band practice, and lessons to kids all across the country in the inner city. Little Kids Rock, and the Rock and Roll for Children Foundation. I serve on the board. They're located in Bethesda, Maryland. And then the Institute for the Musical Arts up in Northampton, Massachusetts, IMA, those two letters, .org, started by June Millington, the guitarist of Fanny. They were the first all-female group signed to a major label. She is iconic in so many ways. She was just interviewed by the Smithsonian the other day. June Millington and Ann Hackler. So that's the Rock and Roll Camp for Girls, but they do so much else. They have a barn studio that was designed by John Stork, who designed Electric Ladyland. And that's up Northampton. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Knows them too. Yeah.
So let me just say those organizations again. First, it's the New Orleans Musicians Clinic, and they're down in New Orleans. Obviously, it's Little Kids Rock and Rock and Roll for Children's Foundation, and June Millington's Institute for Music Arts, which is at ima.org. So please check those out. And if you're looking for organizations to support, they're definitely worthy. And Christine wouldn't spend all her time on it if it wasn't. Thank you so much. It's really enjoyed talking with you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Craig.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Thanks again to Christine Ohlman for spending time with us. I really appreciate it. And know if you see Saturday Night Live, you probably won't see her for some reason. She's not on there, but she's
show the band.
yeah, but she's the voice for 28 years. So appreciate that. And make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on our newsletter list right now. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice. So choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.